Oh.
No, you're on. You should be on.
Say something.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you everyone. And I really appreciate being part of Chef as well as PDNM. And I practiced in Hoffman Estates originally for 15 years. More recently, I'm at North Shore University because I had an opportunity to take a position that would allow me to do some integrative medicine, additional training, and academic work at Pritzker as well. So I enjoy working with the medical students and teaching them. So I put Hygeia and Panacea on my first slide because I really deeply appreciate the Hippocratic oath that we took that tells us actually to use other means that we can to help them. So today we're going to talk about the nutrition basics of plant-based diet, going more advanced for the healthcare professionals in the audience about phytonutrients and antioxidants. We'll talk about specific diseases, and then just analyzing someone's diet, for the dietitians out there to help, give patients some tools like chronometer. And then the last part, if there are any doctors in the audience, I'm going to show you how to get paid a little bit extra for the work that you do without any patient sharing portion for that. So stay tuned, it'll be at the end. So Dr. Loam talked about the leading causes of death, and isn't it interesting how we focus on the right side up there and very little on the left side? So look at smoking alone. So smoking involves, the first three on the left side there. And you talk about, the president talks about enemy of the people, right? So tobacco companies kill 450,000 people every year in the US. Who is the enemy of the people? I just want to ask that question. So in the old nutrition paradigm, food is thought of in terms of its components: macronutrients, micronutrients, fiber. For example, my wife went to the doctor recently, and the doctor actually assumed you must be vegetarian. And at the end, her after visit summary, it's called, had written down, eat more meat and less carb, which is probably the usual script. What does that mean? She was very upset actually, and she didn't want to go to the doctor anymore. I told her, go to that doctor. She's nice, she's good at what she does, just listen to me for nutrition. So what happens is this is called macro confusion. Do we do low fat, high carb, low protein, high protein? What do we do? People are very confused, and then you see articles in the news left and right, and actually none of it makes sense. They're just talking noise, because food is not carb, food is not protein, food is food, and when people learn to eat food, they do much better, it's much simpler. So then what happens, the supplement industry sells the supplements. This will help you digest lectins. This will help you replace this thing missing. And then what happens, we're rearranging the deck chairs and the ship is sinking in the meantime. Meanwhile, the health system makes money. So in fact, my bonus is my income is tied to illness. How much money we generate, how many RVUs we generate. If I have someone healthy, they stop seeing me, that patient results in lost revenue. So for our health system. If someone remains sick, they see me every month, the health system encourages that because that makes more money for us. So we talked about this, that the state of affairs is pretty poor, that 12%, as Dr. Loam said, is mostly like fruit bars and ketchup and French fries and things like that. So this is what it results in. What we're seeing here is all these cereals with all the labels, with all the nutrients. They're actually very nutrient poor. They just stick a few vitamins in there for the illusion of health. What I'm showing here, fresh baby, yummy for the tummy. Fresh choices, does this look fresh? No, it's in a package, it's not fresh at all. Then you have all the vitamins here in the vitamin aisle because of what we're lacking, and I'll show you why. Food labeling reflects in those components that are not real food. So if you look at the food label of a tomato, of an apple, it'll look like, you know what, this is not healthy. It's got a bunch of sugar in it. Why should I eat that? Well, because our RDA and food label system is set up for unhealthy food, for food that's been enriched, which means stripped, and then they add a little bit back. And then you have all of the digestive products for heartburn, for constipation. So I tell patients, you know, why are you going to that aisle? Go to the produce aisle if you're looking for something to be regular with. So in the new paradigm, we want to define food as synergistic and holistically affecting people's health. Nutrients interact with other nutrients. So for example, an apple has little vitamin C, but the antioxidant capacity is very high of an apple. So when people are sick, I tell them, don't take vitamin C, take your nutrients. The whole food is much better than its components. Fruit is not a sugar, brown rice is not a carb, avocado is not fat. So if I'm doing my best that I can in my office to take that out of my vocabulary, carb, fat, sugar, and then focus on real food. The only way I would focus on sugar is stop adding sugar, stop using sugar-sweetened beverage as much as possible. These foods don't need labels, they don't have labels. So nutrition, according to Dr. Colin Campbell, this is a symphony together, is the biologically holistic process by which elements of food and water are used by the body to optimize health. You've probably never seen this definition of food. So the integrated reactions and events of countless food chemicals working together are like a symphony. So a whole food plant-based diet, you've heard this term, is what's recommended. Dr. Colin Campbell, where I took this nutrition course, I highly recommend it. And if anyone works for an agency that is nonprofit or serves the underserved, you should email them. It's very possible they might give out a scholarship. They've helped a lot of my friends generously with that. Nutritionstudies.org is the website. It is absolutely worth it. So he recommends, in one sentence, summarizing the whole thing, eat a whole food plant-based diet, minimizing the consumption of refined foods, added salt, and added fats. And then, as you know, nutrients are very variable depending on how they're stored, what variety of the plant is. So anyone who's gone to Asia, you don't have one banana, you have about 10 different kinds of bananas. So what we have here is we have just pre-selected varieties. The bananas that you get in Thailand, the inside is not white, it actually is yellow. So showing a beta-carotene content in there. Season that you buy it in, the method you cook with it, if you pulverize it and cook with high heat, you've just destroyed a lot of the nutrients in a food. You take a bag of broccoli, stick it in the microwave, you've nuked it, literally nuked it, and you've gotten rid of a lot of the antioxidant. What you're eating is water and fiber in the end. So with so many factors, it's even more important for people to eat whole food plant-based, because what you buy today is much different than what you would have bought, not what you would have bought, what your grandmother or great-grandmother would have picked from the garden. So this slide is actually a very important one that I showed. This is from the China Study book. The China Study book details the difference between plant-based and animal-based foods. So this is 500 calories of energy. This is just 1/4 of a person's requirement. And what they did was they just got this nutrients from the USDA standard reference. And they used, for the meat, animal-based portion, they used beef, pork, chicken, milk, and then for the plant-based, nothing fancy. Spinach, tomatoes, lima beans, peas, and potatoes. Very simple foods. So you can see in the animal-based foods, yes, it has protein, it has a lot of fat, which is saturated, and cholesterol, but on the micronutrients, they're actually very poor. So I've heard people say, oh, iron is much better absorbed from meat. It's true, but there's very little in there to begin with, actually. In the plant-based realm, there's much more, in fact, and even if you don't absorb the full amount, you've got a lot extra in there. Beta-carotene, same thing. It's true, plants, you don't absorb as much, but there's so much in there. It's amazing. You'll still get enough. So if you look at the vitamin aisle, these are the very same vitamins that you find in the aisle. Magnesium would be a vitamin which deficiency causes muscle cramps and leg cramps. The full amount is in their plant-based diet. Folic acid is recommended to be replaced for pregnant women. The word folate comes from the word foliage. Plants, its full amount is in just a quarter of the day's allotment of food. Vitamin E, beta carotene, calcium. You know, it's not calcium, it's calcium. So it's in plant-based foods. Vitamin C people take when they're sick. They should just eat plant-based. Dietary fiber is only in plant-based foods. I remember when our kids were little and we didn't know better, they were eating, you know, chicken nuggets, spaghetti and meatballs, French fries, and it was like concrete, basically. We had to do all kinds of things to get them to go. After we switched over, it was not a problem anymore. So yeah, many pediatricians, they'll recommend, you know, all these supplements and treatments, but they will forget about the food aspect. So this was my trip to Washington National Zoo. I met the panda there, and I saw him just chomping away at eucalyptus leaves without end. So no, I didn't see it, you know, so this challenges the myth that vegans can't be overweight. Yes, they can, actually. Second thing is that there's no lack of protein in that panda. The muscles are just fine. He or she eats just a lot of food. Protein requirements. Often we overestimate our protein requirements because we're basing it on myths that were propagated over 100 years ago. So a very rough rule that you can use is you take the weight in pounds, divide by 3. So if you just look at this example once, you'll see that you don't need to calculate protein. So let's just do the calculation for a little bit. So this is 50 grams for a 150-pound person. That's about 200 calories worth of protein, which is not much at all. If this is a very poor diet of 10% protein or less, you're getting the full amount if you eat 2,000 calories a day. If someone's an athlete, they're eating 5,000 calories a day, you can see how that number will be enough as well. So in athletes, they will consume more calories, therefore more protein. There's no need to balance it out by taking a bunch of shakes with muscle men on them. So animal protein is dirty fuel. Many athletes are recognizing this. The Tennessee Titans and many other athletes are recognizing. Leads to elevated cholesterol, heart disease, inflammation, which is the latest buzzword, asthma, skin conditions and allergy, acidity, which promotes osteoporosis, kidney disease, gout, cancer, hormonal effects. The young man I saw was consuming 4 chicken breasts a day and 4 glasses of milk a day to bulk up. He started developing breasts. And you know, the myth of soy breasts is a myth because you have to consume 3 liters of soy milk to get that. Meanwhile, you know, not too unusual amounts of animal products, and that will happen because that is dairy estrogen. So I saw an ad for Kraft cheese. They said very clearly, no added hormone. True, no added hormone. What about the hormone that the cow gives out? And also Alzheimer's disease, kidney stones, gout. A lot of these diseases are coming back because of the high meat intake. Bottom line, plant proteins are the best fuel for the body. They're nutrient dense, anti-inflammatory, give increased energy, optimize performance, reduce and treat cancer. Dean Ornish showed reversal of prostate cancer with plant-based diet. And as Dr. Loam said, prevent and treat heart disease, reverse actually. Now for the other nutrients that we don't hear about are the phytochemicals. So thousands of years ago, how did humans seek out the foods with the highest phytochemicals? Because we are gifted with absolutely brilliant eyes with rods and cones that we can distinguish brilliant colors that are pleasing to our eyes. So there's a reason why we pick the brightest blueberry and the deepest, darkest red strawberry. We are looking for the low-hanging fruit. And those colors correspond to phytonutrients, which are highly active in our bodies. We're just beginning to learn about them. Now, the USDA does not have reference values for phytochemicals because it would be very poor results in the population. So there's no daily reference intake. New research shows that they may be very well essential to life, prevention of cardiovascular disease and cancer. So what they say is cholesterol is not everything. There's a other component that is just beginning to be understood. We'll go over some of them. Only about a fifth of Americans meet the minimum intake, and in my experience, it's most likely less. These are some examples of those nutrients. Flavonoids are pigments in food, such as leafy greens, citrus, tea, berries, and chocolate. An interesting fact, in India, you might know that they eat food on a big banana leaf. They'll just put all the food right on there, eat with their hands. That banana leaf is loaded with EGCG, which is a flavonoid, which actually has antioxidant, anti-inflammatory potential. Carotenoids such as beta-carotene, lutein, lycopene, zeaxanthin. So you might see vitamins that say they contain these. They contain a little bit, but they're found in all the plant foods. They're good for the eyes. They're good for the body. They reduce fatigue, neutralize free radicals, reduce the risk of cancer. And they also regulate body fat and modulate obesity. So those are your orange foods. And then non-starchy polysaccharides, which are in mushrooms, barley, oats, brown seaweed, wheat bran. They actually have anti-cancer properties, anti-clotting, reduced risk of cancer. So we're just now gathering all these data that really we don't have to know all these. We just have to include a variety, which human beings have been doing for 100,000 years already. When you look at the diet of ancient man, it already was perfect, because how did we evolve? How do we come this far? And then we think we know everything. They also knew everything back then, they just didn't know what to call it. Interestingly, the doctor who discovered hand washing, Ignaz Semmelweis, had no idea of germ theory. He just showed an association. So that's how science worked back then. So lignans, you may have heard of, is a buzzword. They're in flax seeds, the outer coat of the seeds, woody parts of the plants. These are extremely high in flax seeds, so flax is highly anti-inflammatory. Generally speaking, any heart patient or anyone with disease, I would recommend a good helping of flax every day. They're great for replacing eggs and baking. When I make pancakes for my kids, I use flax instead of egg. They also regulate hormones, phytoestrogen. So the beautiful thing about phytoestrogens, you may have heard that, is instead of promoting cancer, it actually reduces it, and they actually help reduce menopause symptoms. Then you have glucosinolates, which are in the cruciferous vegetables, otherwise known as the brassica family. This is why Carol loves cruciferous vegetables, and they're very popular in Italy. And they're denatured by high heat. That's why you don't want to boil away the broccoli, boil away the glucosinolates. You'll see the Italians, they cook these cruciferous vegetables to a crisp and very lightly. Antibiotics inactivate the absorption. So this shows how the gut is intimately involved. Your body's functions are involved as well. And these are powerful anti-cancer and heart disease agents and regulate the immune system. Then we come to isoflavones. So I heard a question to Dr. Loam about plant milks. Personally, being in the integrative world, I recommend soy milk because it has the longest track record. We're talking 1,000 years back that they've used it. And the isoflavones act as an agonist-antagonist, which means that they activate the properties that are desirable. They block the undesirable properties. Soy has actually been shown to reduce and prevent cancer, not promote it, even in women with genetically positive breast cancer. Human research supports the benefit, lowering type 2 diabetes risk, menopause symptoms, breast and gynae cancer, and prostate cancer. So one way to use soy milk is it can be made into yogurt at home. It tastes much better than store-bought yogurt. It can be done with a probiotic capsule or yogurt starter, and with unsweetened soy milk. So a little bit of yogurt with your breakfast is perfect. You can flavor it how you like with dates and fruits. And it can also be used as a base for making delicious curries, which if you had Indian food, you know that we use yogurt as a base for curries. So don't worry about the small print, but this is just showing that now we're recognizing chronic inflammation as the cause for a lot of diseases. So this says autoimmune disorders, cardiovascular disease, cancer, neurologic disease, diabetes, lung disease, asthma, COPD, bone and joint disease like arthritis, back pain, and metabolic diseases like fatty liver and diabetes. So that's why I'm putting so much emphasis on an anti-inflammatory diet. Dr. Andrew Weil is an integrative medicine. He recommends anti-inflammatory diet. So interestingly, the drug companies have started to capitalize on this. Believe it or not, for cardiology, there is now a drug that is used as chemo that they're trying to remarket for the heart. It is $15,000 per injection. It's given 4 times a year. So, what's better, getting chemo for heart disease or taking Phyto for your heart disease? And then we come to omega-3. I'm glad Dr. Lowe brought it up. So just know that one reason why people have trouble with omega-3 is because the high amounts of omega-6 found in oils will compete and interfere with your omega-3 metabolism. The other interesting fact is that turmeric can increase the absorption of DHA into the brain. So that's why Indians use a lot of turmeric in their cooking. So it may have anti-inflammatory properties as well. When someone has autoimmune disease, I generally suggest DHA as a treatment. I found this great UK company, Vegetology, that ships for free. The way you can tell if it's fresh, you break open the capsule and you smell it. Many times it'll smell rancid. This is the only one that I have found so far that smells more pure. And it's about half the cost of US also. Cancer, we have, the important thing to know, we have cancer in our bodies every single day. There's a balance between cell death and cell division. We need to shift that balance. So plant-based diet shifts to reducing inflammation and blood flow to the cancer. Dr. William Lee did the research on angiogenesis that I'll show you. So 30 to 40% of cancer is preventable by nutritional means. It might be more, but this is what we have. So tobacco is 30% of cancer. Adult diet obesity is 30%. Now at my company, we're having a genetic initiative. We're going to screen 10,000 Chicago people for genetics free of charge. They're emphasizing that, yet the genetic factors are less than 5% of cancer. I'm going to use that as an opportunity. When someone comes to me to ask about that, I will give them information on prevention, because that's a missed opportunity otherwise. And fortunately, I have a code to build for that too. I'll show the health professionals. So Dr. William Lee has a database on eattobeat.org. This presentation will be available. I also have it on my SlideShare through LinkedIn. So this database is like a pharmacopoeia of foods. So for example, blueberries is just one example. It shows how it actually prevents cancer and how its mechanisms and the evidence for its use. So you can find, these are the database foods. Fruits, as you can see, they're highly colorful fruits. Vegetables that are in there. Lentils, nuts and beans, grains, seeds, and flowers, all of them very rich. Black rice turns the water like ink black when you cook it. It's amazing. Herbs and spices. So that's why in the Mediterranean and India and parts of China, they use so many herbs and spices to cook. But not only are they flavorful, they have high antioxidant capacity. So recently, I have seen movement from the mainstream medical community. We finally have 2 endocrinology groups. These are 2 groups, AACE and ACE, that are recommending, it says plant-based diet. So it says lifestyle therapy should be the first treatment. It begins with nutrition counseling. All patients should strive to attain and maintain optimal weight through primarily plant-based meal plan. Now, they can't say don't eat meat and eggs because that would create controversy. So what they say instead is they say primarily polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fatty acids, which means plant food, because meat and cheese and eggs don't have those. And they say limited intake of saturated fat and avoidance of trans fat. They can't say don't eat meat, don't eat eggs. don't eat dairy, but they can say that, which is a code word for don't eat meat, eggs, and dairy. Osteoporosis we'll talk about. So there's a calcium paradise identified by World Health Organization. Countries with the highest calcium intake have the most osteoporosis. That's opposite to what you would think. Africa has the lowest calcium intake, the least osteoporosis. So there are other factors involved. So the WHO's recommendations on calcium are much lower than the US's. Because when you have caffeine, you have salt, you're sedentary, you don't have sunlight, the bones are weaker. Movement is important. There actually is a yoga program that has been shown to reverse osteoporosis at sciatica.org. Osteoporosis drugs, if you read the insert, if anyone's on osteoporosis drugs, take time to read through and look at all the possible side effects. Recently, people are beginning to see them. Many times the dentist identifies those side effects. And heart disease we talked about. Whole food plant-based is the only diet that has been shown to reverse heart disease. Not the DASH, not the Mediterranean, not low carb, not the AHA, even the AHA diet. If you want to know why AHA is not recommending whole food plant-based, look at their donors, look at their funders, and you'll see the reason. So I've heard many physicians cite the Predimed study as justification for Mediterranean high-fat diet. What they looked at is they looked at a diet that was about 41% fat, compared it to 39% fat. You're not comparing low fat to high fat, you're comparing high fat to slightly less high fat. That's what they were comparing. Now in another analysis called a pro-vegetarian study of the Predimed data, the same data, they reanalyzed by different quintiles of plant-based food intake. And this is a mortality, or actually a morbidity curve, incidence of cardiovascular endpoint. Quartile 1 is the ones who had very little plant-based foods. Quartile 5, the most. So you can see a very statistically significant difference here. But on the other hand, Mediterranean diet did not show any reduction in heart attack. Think about that for a moment. The cardiologists that cite Predimed keep telling you to prevent heart disease. There is absolutely no reduction in heart attacks with the Predimed study. So Mediterranean diet has not been shown to work. The components of it are the plants, which have been shown to work. And then we have to talk about the gut. The gut is a new target. At North Shore University of Chicago, many of the GI doctors have started recognizing this. So there's a syndrome that's commonly called leaky gut syndrome, and it's actually a real syndrome. GI doctors have recognized this. There's literature to support it. So what you have is the tight junctions, the zonulin that can get damaged through various insults, like non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, proton pump inhibitors, antibiotics, inflammation, or some people have gluten intolerance. I find roughly maybe 6 times the number of celiac patients that 6 times as much patients than celiac patients have some form of gluten intolerance, whatever the reason is, So if celiac is less than 1%, non-celiac gluten intolerance is about 5 or 6%, which is not negligible. So many times people can have this, what they call brain fog, digestive issues, bloating, gas. It may or may not be gluten, and simply it can be eliminated for 2 or 3 weeks to do a trial. Our gut microbes are 10 times the cells in our body. They protect us. They form a little barrier in the intestine. This is 3/4 of our immune system. It's not us, technically. Serotonin is in the gut. When people say they have a gut feeling, it may actually be a thing. This leads to many diseases that have been identified. So supporting a healthy gut is very important. We don't consume as many fermented foods. So autoimmune disease is one disease I've seen remarkable results from plant-based diet within weeks of starting plant-based diet. Some people can get rid of joint pain, inflammation from autoimmune disease. For Crohn's disease, there's actually one study showing an amazing remission from plant-based diet without the standard one. Standard one, about 20% remained in remission. The plant-based, over 80% were in remission. It should be national news. Animal proteins can go through these tight junctions that we showed intact and then create an inflammatory reaction. So for example, I have a patient who's a butcher. He works for a grocery store and he loves his job because he earns a lot of money and he's getting horrible rheumatoid arthritis. His hands hurt every single day. He has positivity for it. We have him on drugs that cost $7,000 a month. But he has to do his job because he said he can't do anything else. That's what he's done his whole life. So what the theory is that all these compounds that he works with get inhaled in and cause an immune reaction. Because when you chop up knuckles all day, that may form an immune reaction to your knuckles, for example. A whole food plant-based diet has been shown to reverse many diseases, including psoriasis, even lupus. There's a doctor, Brooke Goldner, who has an amazing story to tell. She tried to do a research project with Mayo. They originally gave her the go-ahead, and then they pulled out for some odd reason. So you can see this sinister thread woven through medicine where there's this give and take, there's this opposition to what we do. Because, you know, I didn't say this, but I don't earn any money from anyone for this. I'm not drug company sponsored, I don't have any funding or grants or anything like that, but they do. So if you look up doctors under a database called ProPublica, you can see which money they're receiving from what source because of the Sunshine Act. And you'll be shocked by what you find. For example, the head of Cleveland Clinic, Steve Nissen, has income totaling about $40,000. It doesn't sound like much, but this is income he's earned from drug company events, drug company consulting. Then the question becomes, how much of the money funneling through Cleveland Clinic is coming through drug companies? You know, he was instrumental in the approval of a cholesterol drug that cost $14,000 a year. So you can bet it's coming to Cleveland Clinic and influencing his decisions. So Dr. Nissen, the head of Cleveland Clinic Cardiology, has an article called Eat Butter, Bacon, and Beef. It's not a sin, it's not so bad. And I wonder whether one is connected to the other. And he has really kind of dismissed plant-based eating. So the other thing to know is, in my experience as integrative medicine, is dairy is one of the most inflammatory foods, and it's also the most often consumed. People don't think twice about having 3-4 servings of dairy per day, because that's what we are told to do as doctors, is promote it. Interestingly, I obtained a document from National Medical Association, which is a group of black physicians, because AMA used to exclude black physicians. So this was funded by dairy industry, and it was entitled, How to Get African Americans to Consume More Dairy Foods. So there's, again, very sinister component running through some of these medical organizations. My medical organization, AAFP, was funded by Coca-Cola, and now they are funded by dairy and beef. And their lifestyle medicine group is dominated by the low-carb people that promote meat. And they actually told me to tone down my talk of plant-based diets in that group, lifestyle medicine interest group of American Academy of Family Physicians. So we have, you know, this gut brain. It's the second brain in our nervous system that, you know, basically that the foods we eat can determine stress. So many people will tell you when they switch diet, they feel something different in their brains. They feel this calm and inner peace. And it's hard to describe it, but everything has a scientific explanation. This is it, the gut-brain axis, because our vagus nerve is directly connected to our gut. So every day we make a choice. We can choose life or we can choose death. So my suggestion is choose life, even if you're not 100% of the way. Hopefully you'll get there by taking the step after today. So the official statement by American Academy of Nutrition Dietetics is not only are appropriately planned vegetarian vegan diets healthful, adequate, but they provide benefits for prevention and treatment of diseases. They don't say that about any other diet. So we'll talk about putting it together, how to make it practically work. This is one example of a food pyramid from Juliana Heber, who's written several books. She goes by plant-based dietitian. So she talks about making a base with fruits and vegetables, including whole grains only, legumes, leafy green vegetables, and then high-fat whole foods, not oil, not dairy foods. So this is not that much different from my plate. It's just my plate has different emphasis, that's all. This is compatible with my plate. So let's talk about nutrient density. Why do we say no oil for someone who needs to lose weight? Because as you know, you can go to a restaurant, you can consume bread and that a quarter cup of dipping oil or more. You've just eaten it, you still feel hungry, and you've just eaten 800 calories. You have some wine and maybe 1,000. So the goal is to go for the vegetable crudité with hummus, because that will fill you up. So this is another density chart. I do see overweight and sick vegans as well. They come in because I'm very much into veganism. But the reason is because they're eating refined carbohydrates, white flour, sugary snacks, junky food. There's a lot of vegan fun food in Chicago. And oils, like Chicago Diner. That's something to stay away from. And I get sick when I eat anyway. So this is the food to focus on. There are a few restaurants here and there who do focus on that kind of food. And the fortunate thing is many mainstream restaurants have started to as well. For example, you can go to Noodles and Company, which you think is all refined carb. No, they have zucchini noodles available. So even when you're in a hurry, they have tofu available too. It may not be 100% oil-free, but it's a step in the right direction. Then lastly, we'll talk about mindful eating. So we talked about what to eat. Let's talk about how to eat. This is from a book by Lillian Chung and Thich Nhat Hanh called Savor. She's at Harvard School of Public Health, and she writes for Nutrition Source. So she says these steps, and she has a beautiful video about it. I have to link to that presentation. Honor the food. Understand where it's coming from. Engage all your senses. Take a moment to just sit down, smell it, enjoy it. I have a son that does that. He takes some time to mix it all together, smell it, look at it. The other one just digs in. Be mindful of the portion sizes. You can always take more later on. Make sure to chew your food because that chewing process releases more nutrients. Eat slowly and mindfully, and we'll say quietly, reverently. Enjoy and taste your food because many people are distracted, they're on the phone. Don't skip meals. This whole skipping meals thing, I'm not a fan of. I suggest, as the scientists have suggested, 3 times a day, roughly 7, 1, and 7, or 6, 12, and 6, whatever works. But a 12-hour eating interval is what I recommend. And then she says very clearly, Harvard School of Public Health, eat a plant-based diet. People misunderstand. When I say plant-based, I mean plants only, because many patients come to me saying, oh, I have started that plant-based diet. I'm eating chicken and fish and some vegetables. So, this is basically a term that was coined by T. Colin Campbell to make it more mainstream and acceptable, which I think has been very successful. Besides diet, these are the other lifestyle factors to incorporate. Dr. David Katz has made a mnemonic: feed, fingers, forks, or feed, forks, fingers, sleep, stress, and love. So the typical recommendation is 150 to 300 minutes of weekly exercise with 2 days of resistance, plant-based diet, avoidance of alcohol and tobacco. I can't stress this enough. Alcohol poisons the microbiome. It numbs the senses. It makes people make bad decisions. We're talking even moderate alcohol intake. It's enough to cloud the mind. And sleep 7 to 8 hours a day, a night. Stress management, mindfulness. Dr. Lone was talking that there was no program at his institution. The good thing is that Rush actually has a mindfulness program downtown. North Shore has a mindfulness program. And there are meditation groups in the area. You can just Google it, you can find it. Yoga studios often have meditation, which is very important. Beginning any new diet or new lifestyle to manage stress first, because stress makes you make bad decisions. And then love for a significant other, the earth, the animals, cultivation of universal love for everyone. This is what is linked together with plant-based diet. So this is just going to be a quick analysis, just to show you the benefit of plant-based again. I used a tool called Chronometer. This is a very kind of moderate plant-based diet for maybe a younger person. Smoothie is made with soy milk and some vegetables. Chickpeas, broccoli, and bulgur, apple, peanut butter snack. And dinner is like a curry with sweet potato and tahini and 4 Brazil nuts, and 10 almonds with soy milk. This is really not much food. I didn't even include much of grains in there. But just to show you how little plant-based foods can make a lot of nutrient progress. So what happens is in Chronometer, you get all the foods tabulated, all the calories. Oh, there's Dr. Gundry's tablets for digesting it, which you don't need. This will pop up in ads everywhere on the internet. It's like $60 to $80 a bottle. It's a waste of money. So what ends up happening, you have over 2,000 calories. You have every single nutrient green. Vitamin A is red because this is like 669,000 units of vitamin A. So it's saying, oh, that's too much. But that's too much if you're consuming the vitamin, not if you're consuming the food. So, and you're more than enough on every single amino acid if you're worried about amino acid. All the aminos are satisfied, not one weak product is in there. So then I'm just showing the comparison to keto. I took this off a typical keto website. Many of your friends may be doing keto. Maybe someone is doing keto. So we're talking eggs, butter, olive oil, beef, egg, Dijon, more oil, scallions. The thing about keto is they want you to go into ketosis, which means no carbohydrates, like maybe 20 grams, that's it. So what we ended up with is about 2293 calories. We are deficient on multiple vitamins: thiamine, B5, pantothenic acid, folate, vitamin C, vitamin D. Fiber is almost non-existent. You know, just to compare, the fiber content was 68 grams in the plant-based diet. It's 8 grams in the keto diet. But look, we have such little carbs. So as you can see, minerals are also deficient. Calcium's not there, magnesium's not there, potassium's not there. So the thing people cite, if you don't eat meat, you won't get nutrients. We show it to be a complete myth. So I present this to people doing keto, and they say they don't have an answer for me. They just don't know what to say. So keto is a nightmare. This is a slide from the presentation someone did. So many medical side effects of keto. If this were a drug, you would never take it. This is what I hope to see more of in my office someday. And I am seeing this here and there, maybe once a month, twice a month. I do see. So I tell them, you vegans, you make the worst patients because you're so healthy. You only see me once in a while. You could at least stop in once a year to save love. So now for the money part, for healthcare providers. Any doctors that are in the audience? Yeah, we have a few. So this is actually, if you work with a doctor or if you have a doctor, you could mention it if you wanted to. It's like a gift to them that keeps on giving. So this is a billing code 99401, which it's been there for over 10 years, just no one used it. So the thing that happened is 2016, the U.S. Preventive Task Force came up with a recommendation that dietary counseling is valid and covered as a preventive service under Category B. Under ACA, whatever is covered under U.S. Preventive Service Task Force has to be paid for. It's mandated without patient co-sharing. So let's say someone sees the doctor for a routine, not routine. If you see for a routine visit, it's supposed to be bundled in there. But a problem visit, something, sickness, like even if it's a cold, even if it's some other problem visit, this can be added on if the doctor spends 8 to 15 minutes nutritional intervention. A brief questionnaire of food intake, starting with plant-based foods. That's what I suggest. So I created an intake form. And then counsel with motivational interviewing. Motivational interviewing is giving feedback and then getting the patient to change, but making them think it was their idea, not your idea. So what I do is at the end of my counseling, I'll say, what are your 3 ideas for improving your diet? And then I'll write it right in their summary and say, this was yours, this was not mine. I hope that you can follow it next time we meet. By the next time we meet, I hope that you're following it. And then, yeah, you paste the answers back into the visit summary. So I encourage everyone to create their own, but if you want it from me, just contact me. I'm agarg, A-G-A-R-G, at northshore.org. I'd be happy, and these are just some resources that will be in there. So I like this quote as well. This is the Einstein Memorial. These are my two kids, one of them hiding behind. This is the most amazing memorial in DC, I think. So thank you.